All right, let's talk about QA interviews. We're going to move beyond just memorizing answers and turn your next interview into a performance that really shows what you're made of. This isn't just about getting the answers right. It's about proving you've got the mindset and the value they're looking for. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the core concepts, the fundamentals. Then we'll get into how to really prove your experience. After that, a deep dive into automation, which is huge. We'll also cover how to handle those tough, tricky scenarios. And finally, we'll talk about how to seal the deal.
First up, the core concepts. Look, it doesn't matter if you're going for a senior role or your first gig, you have to nail the fundamentals. This is your foundation, right? Let's build it strong.
All right, here's a classic. I bet you've heard this one a million times. But really think about it. What is the difference between verification and validation? Can you nail the answer nice and clean? Because this one really tests if you get the basics.
So here's the simplest way to think about it. Verification is like checking the blueprint. You're asking, are we building this thing the right way? You're looking at documents, design, code, all the stuff before the final product. But validation, that's when you have the actual product in your hands. You're asking, did we build the right thing? Does it actually do what the user needs it to do? One's about the process, the other's about the product. Simple as that.
Okay, next question. Every bug goes on a little journey, right? Interviewers love to ask about the defect lifecycle because they want to know if you understand the whole process, how a bug is born, how it gets fixed, and how it finally gets put to rest.
And this is the typical path. It starts as new. Then it gets assigned to a dev. They work their magic and mark it fixed. Then it comes back to us, we retest it, and if it's all good, we close it. Done. Now, if you really want to impress them, mention a few other states, like reopened if the fix was no good, or deferred if we decide to fix it later. It just shows you know the whole picture.
Okay, so you've nailed the theory, but that's just level 1. Now we get to the fun part, proving you've actually done this stuff. We're talking behavioral questions. This is where you tell your stories and show them how you think, not just what you know.
Oof, this one. Tell me about a time you messed up. It feels like a trap, doesn't it? But it's not. What they're really asking is, are you accountable? Can you solve problems? And most importantly, do you learn from your mistakes? Your answer here says everything about who you are as a professional.
So don't panic, you need a recovery strategy. Here's how you play it. First, just own it. No excuses, no blaming anyone. Then you put on your detective hat and figure out exactly how it slipped through. Was it a gap in our tests? A weird edge case? Once you know why, you take action. You update the test cases so this exact thing can never ever happen again. And the final, crucial step, you share what you learned so the whole team gets better. See? It's a story of improvement, not failure.
And you wrap up your story with a killer takeaway like this, saying something like, that failure taught me to always test beyond the requirement. Think like a user, not just a tester, is so powerful. It shows you didn't just fix a bug. The experience changed how you approach your job. You're not just a box checker, you're a quality advocate. That's the kind of thing that makes an interviewer sit up and take notice.
All right, let's talk about the big one, automation. Look, manual testing is your ticket to the game, but automation skills, that's how you win. This is what makes you a true quality engineer, someone who can speed things up and make the whole process safer.
And if you're going to talk automation, you absolutely have to know about the Page Object Model, or POM. It is the gold standard, and for good reason. Think of it like this. For every page on the website, you create one file that knows where everything is on that page. So if the login button moves or its ID changes, you only have to fix it in that one file, not in 100 different test scripts. It's all about keeping your code clean, reusable, and not a total nightmare to maintain.
Okay, this is a really practical question they'll almost always ask. You can't just automate everything, right? That'd be a huge waste of time. So how do you decide what's actually worth automating?
It's all about being strategic. You want to focus on the big stuff first. The high-risk, business-critical things, like the checkout process. If that breaks, you're losing money. Then you go for the things you do over and over again, like logging in. Let the robots handle that. Also, automate stuff that takes forever to do manually. And of course, your main regression and smoke tests. The key takeaway? Go after stable features. Trying to automate a part of the app that's changing every 5 minutes is just painful. Don't do it.
And you've got to know your tools. Let's take two of the big ones, Selenium and Cypress. Think of Selenium as the reliable, all-terrain vehicle. It can go anywhere, supports tons of languages, runs on pretty much any browser. It's the versatile workhorse. Cypress, on the other hand, is like a Formula One race car. It's incredibly fast, amazing for modern web apps, and developers love working with it. But it's a bit picky. It mainly speaks JavaScript and sticks to Chrome-based browsers. Knowing the pros and cons shows you're not just a coder. You're a strategist who picks the right tool for the race.
Okay, tech skills are one thing, but the interview isn't over. Now come the questions that dig a little deeper. They're trying to figure out your real value, your attitude, and are you going to be a good fit for the team?
And here it is, the big one. So, why should we hire you? This is your moment. It's where you take everything you've talked about and tie it all together with a bow. Time for your sales pitch.
Here's the winning formula. It has 4 key ingredients. First, your hands-on experience, the stuff you've already mastered, like manual and API testing. Second, your hunger to grow, mentioning skills you're picking up, like automation or even AI. Third, and this is maybe the most important, your mindset. You're not just a tester, you're an owner of quality who cares about the user. And finally, you tell them you're a quick study, ready to jump in and learn whatever they're using. You bring the past, the future, and the right attitude.
This is a super common scenario, especially if you're looking at smaller companies or startups. You're the lone QA warrior. We're moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. What do? They want to know if you can handle the pressure and think strategically when you're on your own.
And here's your survival guide. The absolute key is you don't try to be a superhero and test everything. It's impossible. Instead, you get smart. You build a lightweight but effective process. You automate all the repetitive stuff to buy yourself more time. You stay glued to the developers, communicating constantly so you can catch things early. And most importantly, you have to be ruthless about prioritizing. You focus your energy on what could cause the most damage if it breaks. It's all about impact.
All right, we're in the home stretch. You've crushed the technical part. Now it's time to close this thing out. Let's talk about salary and the final questions you need to ask to really leave a mark.
Now, when they ask about salary, this one phrase is pure gold. I'm not looking at this as a hike, but as a market correction for my current skills and responsibilities. Whoa! See what that does? It completely reframes the conversation. You're not just asking for a raise. You're stating that your skills have grown, the market has changed, and you're looking for compensation that matches your current value. It's confident, professional, and really hard to argue with.
And then comes the final test. Do you have any questions for us? Please, please, please do not say, nope, I'm good. This is not just a polite gesture. This is your last chance to show how engaged and strategic you are. And it's also your chance to figure out if you even want to work there.
So what do you ask? Ask smart questions that show you're already thinking like part of the team. Ask about their biggest quality challenges. That shows you want to solve problems. Ask how the QA team and automation fit into the big picture. That shows you care about process. And definitely ask about how they help you grow and learn new things. That shows you have a growth mindset. These kinds of questions prove you're not just looking for any job. You're looking for the right job where you can make a real difference. You want to walk out of that room leaving them thinking one thing: we have to hire that person.